So, Trump wanted to get Apple's data on the Democrats, but did Apple comply?
Then, a little-known kitty company called Kitty Hawk just got a name COO. Are air taxis really going to be a thing?
And Washington, which can't agree on much, has a bipartisan plan to control big tech.
I'm Steven Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward.
I'm Alexa Scordato. Let's launch.
Hey, Alexa.
Hey, Steve.
Happy June. Happy
I
middle of
know.
June, almost.
Happy almost half of 2021 behind us.
So I have to say, I've gone on this Apple story, which is really where we're going to start. I've gone through it 15 different times, and I can't decide if Apple's wearing the white hat or the black hat.
Yeah, I actually admittedly had a pretty just busy week and didn't realize that this story broke on Friday. So I'm also catching up. And like you, it does not feel clear. I mean, okay, we should just back up. So what happened is a paralegal, right? Basically released Apple's records on some Democrats after being subpoenaed by Trump's DOJ, Department of Justice.
Well, I mean, it goes back even a step before that. So this story has been kind of like slowly dripping out. First, it was Trump was trying to get journalist records, and that was kind of all the journalists got upset and was like, "This is terrible." And then it was Trump was trying to get Democrats' records, and in each case, the reason we're learning about it now is because the gag orders that the federal magistrate put on these subpoenas expired. And, it made me think about, if you're in the Biden administration, how many ticking time bombs of bullshit are in your desk drawer that, like, Trump did stuff, you didn't know about it, you're at the DOJ, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, not only do we have to, like, announce this and deal with it, but we kind of have to own it, even though we didn't. It isn't clear to me whether the DOJ is a different organization under Biden than it was under Trump. I mean, it's still the same people, right? They didn't clean house.
Right. But the intentions and motives might have shifted, or at least the prioritization.
So Apple responded to this with this very squishy, not entirely clear answer. They said, yes, we followed the subpoena as we had to. And yes, we didn't tell the people that we were giving up the data because it was, we specifically, were banned from doing that. But all we gave up was the user ID name and the metadata, not the content in the account. And I'm like, first of all, huh? And then secondly, like, so how often does this happen? Like,
well, they said every day. They said it, like, they get subpoenas every day, and there's like a process, which is actually why in this case it was like a paralegal, my understanding, who just complied. And I guess what I don't understand is they said they didn't know that it was they didn't understand the intent of the subpoena, in which case I would expect Apple, that's for me where things kind of get a little bit fuzzy. I would have expected Apple to sort of say this request is too broad, and then to dig a little bit further.
Yeah.
So I think they made a mistake by not inquiring, but they also at the same time had to legally do it regardless.
But at a time when Apple is aggressively promoting itself as the protector of your privacy, there is this dark cloud over that marketing message, which is, unless a judge tells us otherwise.
Right. If Apple gets subpoenaed, then game over.
Right. But if I use Signal or one of the various, encoded apps, then it's not game over anymore.
Right. And Apple allows that on its app store. So maybe that's the message in general, which is use encrypted platforms.
So have you started to get these messages from Apple that say, hey, this app is asking to follow your personal information. Do you want to allow them to do it or not?
Oh, every single app I open.
Yeah. Have you ever said yes?
No.
No, me neither. Not once. And I say no with glee. Like, although I do understand as someone who's been in the advertising business that I'm essentially disassembling the entire economic basis of the web by saying no.
Yes and no. I mean, okay, as this is like as a marketer's take, does not reflect current and past employers. Like this, I hope that we usher in this new era of marketing where products and content win, not necessarily algorithms and platforms. Meaning, like, we have to up the ante. Like, we shouldn't just be able to run email addresses through Facebook and then just expect the ad tech to do its thing. Like, I actually think that there is an opportunity for products and market competition to do its thing, but then for marketers to really, really up the ante when it comes to creating better content.
So, back in the day, there was this phrase that Seth kicked around early days, permission marketing. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to giving certain of my brand relationships permission to do more with my information if I thought they weren't going to mistreat me. But like, I don't know. But back to Apple for a minute. So, and by the way, part of what makes Apple such an interesting moment in time, given its relative size. I was in an Apple store yesterday looking at the new computers because everyone says the M1 chip is amazing. And I think ready to buy a couple of new desktops. The
Exciting.
People in the Apple store, well, we'll see. I mean, the people in the Apple store were, mostly what they said was, yeah, these are all great. Why don't you go online and pick the one you want and order it? We don't have any stock in the store. They were nice enough, but like that, they weren't that super trained geek. Let me understand what you're going to use the computer for. We'll find the right one. I'll write down the specs. I remember them being brilliant salespeople. I'm about to spend thousands of dollars. And mostly they said, why don't you go pick it out on the website?
Yep.
It's fine.
I was connected to a woman who opened 15 of the original Apple stores. And she always talks about how it's just not the same anymore.
Yeah. No, having said that, here's the other note to all of you out there in listener land. As charming as the colors appear online, don't buy one without going and seeing it in person first.
I 10,000% agree. Your monitor calibration, impacts it.
And they're kind of a little pastelier than I expected them to be.
For sure, especially purple.
Yeah, we're going with silver or white, depending on what you call it. But like the super, we're not. And the question that Pam and I had was, are these colors going to look dated? Like, oh, in a year you're going to be like, oh, I can't believe I have to stare at that tinted yellow box. I'm not. I was not blown away by the colors.
No, you can always put some vinyl decal or something on the back.
Stop! You can't. No, you. I'm talking about the front has a color too.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, but in terms of the back being really loud.
All right, but credit to Apple. They've shifted us from talking about privacy and security to the color theme.
To colors.
That's some fine marketing. All right, so let's get back. Let's just spend another minute on this creepy, I don't understand what information Apple has about me now that I've read this. B, I don't understand that you can subpoena it, although I guess I do. And given that Trump was clearly doing creepy shit to the Justice Department, why Apple didn't fight it? I mean, even if they had, they couldn't tell the people that were being subpoenaed that their information was being subpoenaed, but they could have said, we're getting all these subpoenas from the Justice Department that seemed us to be overreaching, right? They could have chosen to out the practice, couldn't they? Maybe not.
Yeah. Who knows?
I mean,
but either way, they have a lot of data. They have a lot of data.
Remember the whole thing when the federal government wanted Apple to break into a phone? Was it Pablo Escobar?
And they were like, absolutely no.
Right?
Yeah.
I like that.
They were
that
super righteous in that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew what metadata was. The metadata specifically. Like, is it your like location? Is it, what apps you used, but not necessarily what you did on the apps? Like that would be helpful.
Okay, you've honed in on exactly the right question. So what we have to find before next week is when Apple says metadata, what the F are they talking about? Yeah. What is my metadata that Apple has? Because somebody could get a subpoena and go get it. And I would like to know what that is. So listeners, viewers, if you know what the metadata is that Apple has and has the authority to, when presented with a subpoena, give to a judge, it would be good to know that, because I might be moving all my communications to Signal or something.
Telegram, WhatsApp. Yeah. Not WhatsApp.
All
Telegram.
Right. All right. Next up, let's talk about these flying cars.
Okay. Spoiler alert. Even though I'm always like, oh, I'll put a chip in my head and let Elon Musk let me manipulate the world with my brain, I would not get into a self-driving airplane taxi. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm okay with the monkey chip brain, but I'm not okay with the robo air taxis.
So is it because you think it's too soon? Or
I think it's just no, but the monkey chip brain wasn't too soon either.
All right, let's go back a step. So how often have you flown in a helicopter?
0 times.
Okay, 0 times.
And now it's going to be 0 times because of Kobe Bryant. I can't believe Kobe Bryant passed away in a helicopter.
Different story, regular helicopter, bad weather conditions, dangerous pilot. But in any case, I have been in my share of helicopter rides. Not a billion, but enough to know that there is something both incredibly awesome and strangely creepy about them. I mean, it's a little bit like traveling. It's a little bit like traveling in a blender. It makes an enormous noise. It kind of doesn't really make sense. And unlike airplanes, which you could almost imagine the engines go out and you have to, they don't drop out of the sky. You have to have some kind of a crash landing into the sea or something. But you could, like, when the spinny thing stops spinning, you just drop like a rock. So they're a little magical and kind of like very master of the universe-y, but they're a little scary.
Okay.
But I'm okay with
and so you think this is going to be the same experience, like in terms of the way that you feel like a helicopter is efficient and convenient to transport you? You think air taxis are going to do that?
Well, so the New York Times article about this says somewhat snarkily, let's remember that by now we expected all the cities to basically have replaced driving Ubers with a fleet of little autonomous taxis that would pull up in front of your door. The door would open. You'd get in. You'd swipe your phone. It would take you to your location. It would drop you off. Turns out that, I mean, technologically, that probably could happen, but it just doesn't seem to be happening so fast.
Right.
So I guess I don't see Jetsons. Well, what's weird is if you look at, there's a whole, okay, let's go back. There's a whole bunch of money chasing either air taxis or driverless air taxis. And it does seem to be kind of the tech bubble of the moment.
Okay, maybe I'm contradicting myself. I just had this thought, which is maybe the way I feel about self-driving cars and planes is a way that people felt about horses and then getting into cars. Like, oh, I know how to ride a horse. I'm used to riding a horse. I have control over that experience. And this new thing, this car, is like foreign to me. I don't know if it's safe. Maybe it's just, that's just where we're at. We are not going to be the generation that ever feels good about it, but who knows?
All right, so let's play the sci-fi game. New York has all of these streets, right? And they're all boxes, go grid pattern. So could you not have a second layer of street that's for aero cars? And like, I'm looking out my window, I'm on the 4th floor. Would it be super creepy to have like people in flying vehicles going up and down Broadway? Yeah, I don't know. I like the Jetsons.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I just like picturing cars in the air, Amazon delivery drones, and then Elon Musk like Wi-Fi satellites. It's already getting pretty crowded up there, right?
All right, so here's a headline from The Verge. Larry Page's air taxi startup is buying former DJI rival 3D Robotics. So we're going to go back in time for those of you who don't know this. 3D Robotics was the company of Chris Anderson, who was the editor of Wired for a very long time, and then got into the robotic space and was the U.S. leader in robotics before essentially the Chinese company DJI, and to some extent the French as well, just kind of took over the market. 3D Robotics has pivoted a couple times. I don't know what they're doing now, but I did go into my book collection and find this.
The Long Tail.
So this was Chris Anderson's famous book, and I might reread it because it, we don't use that phrase in conversation now. Like the long tail doesn't come up over cocktails much, but for a big chunk of my early career, it was essentially what I bet 2 companies on: the long tail.
So interesting.
More content, audiences come to it when they're ready, less broadcast, more on demand. And so, Chris was, among other things, is a friend, but also was I considered him a hero.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say air taxis are still on the longish end of the long tail.
Yeah. I think cars before air taxis. I think
battery cars.
I think consumers need to be comfortable getting to autonomous on the ground vehicles before they're willing to get into in-flight vehicles. My prediction.
Okay. Last story, and maybe the one that's the most frothy of the entire show, is this House lawmaker. So 2 things. I have a theory. I was been thinking about this a lot as Biden went overseas, that people look at the calendar, they plan their year in advance, and they know like when the general public's attention, like there's a reason why Biden's in Europe this week. I mean, the G7 and all that, but like people are checked out. Like Like there's not, everyone's either on vacation or chilling or taking some time off or going to the park or going to a swimming pool. Like this is a very chill moment. And so the fact that there were 5 bills passed on Friday, bipartisan bills to unwind tech monopolies. I mean, maybe it's just the nature of the congressional calendar and it's when they finally got all these things up for a vote. But it does seem to me slightly suspicious that this story will float under radar.
But don't you? I mean, we've sort of been covering it a lot, right? Like it, and Amy Klobuchar has just been making the rounds in terms of, you know, talking about this publicly. I think everyone is just coming to terms with the fact that the government is stepping in, and so it's just going to play out and take its course.
I read them all. I mean, I read the details of the 5 bills. 2 of them I didn't fully understand. One of them I thought was, but the one that I wanted to talk to you about, because I think it's the one that could be truly game changing and quickly, is the idea of data portability.
Oh, huge, 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 huge. Okay, I'll give you really, and I care a lot about this. Like, if you have a blog, let's say, and you write a journal entry every day for your life, right? You should be able to export that content that you wrote onto another platform. And right now, the way some platforms work, they make it incredibly hard for you to do that. And so I think that's huge that there's a provision for that.
So I decided a couple of days ago, summer's coming, I want to have some different inputs in my brain. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do more audiobooks this summer. I'm going to do less podcasts, which I'm finding not ours, by the way, but some of the ones that I listen to are just getting a little screamy. I was like, I don't know how much more Kara Swisher, Professor G, I need a little break from them. So I was like, I'm going to get more books. So I was about to sign up for Audible, but I realized I find the subscription part of Audible a little daunting. Like, oh, I have to get a book every month, otherwise I'm paying for a subscription for something, whatever. So I feel like, how else can I buy books? So I type in, how can I buy books? First answer is Audible. The second is Apple Books. Didn't know that. I mean, I guess I should have. Fine. So I find the book I want. I'm about to buy it. It's $22 for an Audible or for a audiobook. And then I'm like, wait a minute, $22 for a single book. And then I go to Audible and it's $15 a month. So I'm like, all right, fine. You got me. I'm going to at least be doing it for 3 months. It's cheaper. I'll go for Audible. I sign up. And even though I went to Chrome and searched for Audible and found the sign up page and clicked on it, it still wanted to charge my Apple ID.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does Apple get a piece of the Audible subscription when I'm not going through the App Store?
Well, because it's still on your phone, right? Like, or your iPad? Yeah.
My phone.
So you just witnessed that whole thing that Epic sued Apple over.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
So data portability means fuck that. I don't want to give Apple 30%. I mean, I don't think they deserve 30%. I didn't find the, Audible through them. I searched it myself. I went to their website. I would like to pay. By the way, not that Bezos needs my money any more than Tim Cook does, but data portability is going to be big. It's going to be the first shot across the bow of consumer rights.
Yep. By the way, I should plug this website for you, bookshop.org. It's my fave because when you buy books on it, you support local bookstores. And
audiobooks?
Not audiobooks, it's just books in general.
I go to my local bookshop.
Yeah. This is just another way to spread the love. I always go when I travel into local bookstores, Portland or Seattle or whatever. And with Bookshop, you can actually select the local bookstore.
So I guess the only thing I will say about this bipartisan bill thing is I'm suspicious of this word. I find this word very
bipartisan.
suspicious. Yeah.
Is it just because it's been so long since we've had
No,
bipartisan anything?
No, because I think it all rolls up to McConnell, who is the opposite of bipartisan anything. So I think a bunch of low-level, congressional people can go ahead and decide they want to, promote something, but it's going to come down to a partisan battle at the end.
I actually think I have a different take on it, which is that our lawmakers are so clueless when it comes to tech that there's actually just a lot of like head nodding going on, and they feel like this is just the one thing where they're like telling themselves, I don't really know what all of this is. I know big tech equals bad. We don't want monopolies. And all they can understand are like the headlines of the 5 bills. It's like, okay, you can't buy nascent competitors. So Facebook can't buy Instagram in hindsight. Okay, you can't create false marketplace dynamics. Amazon, you need to sell Amazon Basics because it basically makes your current marketplace unethical. Like, that's all I think they can really wrap their head around, in which case each of those headlines is not complicated. It's like a very, yes, let's do this.
So, yeah, I saw the Amazon Basics thing and it made me scratch my head. So, like, you sell it and then it becomes what? Its own company called Amazon Basics, which comes into Amazon. I guess I don't understand.
Let's just take one category, like say shoes. Right now, what Amazon's doing is it looks at all of the consumer search data and purchase behavior, and it says, wow, like women 18 to 24 really like platform sandals again. Like 90s fashion is coming back. So we're going to rapidly create our own line of shoes that look like the top 3 selling products in this one category. Amazon should not be in a position to do that anymore. If they want to go make shoes and compete in the shoe category, then like go off and do that, but don't give yourselves a competitive advantage by literally understanding like the market insights that make your supply chain faster and more efficient than the other ones in that category.
All right, 2 other quick headlines because we're going to run out of time. We should talk for a minute about the Bezos goes to space story, and we should talk for a minute about the mayoral election in New York. So Let's start with Bezos going off to space. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who bought the seat next to him. I think you're a sucker. I think he's going to be a terrible flight companion, and you're going to be a tool and get your picture taken a bunch. We don't know who it is, right?
It is. No, for me, a $28 million photo op is so absurd.
Well, I guess if you have $1 billion, we don't know who it is, but we'll find out it's another rich guy. So, or rich woman, right. But probably a rich guy. If you've got $1 billion, 28 million for a ticket, whatevs. But you're not going to be Jeff's best friend. You're just going to basically, I don't know. Where's the money going? Is it going to charity? No, it's going to Jeff.
It's going to his company.
Yeah. So it's not even a goodwill thing. It's not even like it's going to feed the hungry.
No.
All right. So we don't care about that story. But let us talk about the mayoral election, because that I do care about deeply. Early voting started yesterday. A lot of enthusiasm. It's kind of now, it depends. There's very little polling that's trustworthy, but the polling that seems to be getting reported says it's pretty much neck and neck between Eric Adams and Andrew Yang. Eric Adams, who's sleeping on a mattress at his borough president's office in Brooklyn because, according to him, he wants to be near where the action is. You can't rent a hotel room or an apartment. Like, I don't get that at all. I think it's creepy and weird. And like, up until a month ago, the action was on Zoom. So, why he was sleeping on the floor of his office, except that I think his actual apartment or actual home was in New Jersey, and they figured out that was a bad look for a mayoral candidate.
Yeah. Can you, Steve, one of the significant things about this election is that it's the first time we're doing ranked choice voting. Can you give a quick overview, like, what is ranked choice voting and why is it better?
Oh, well, those are two different questions. I'm not sure. So is it actually better? It means you don't have to have a runoff election. It means that if you get down to two candidates that are so close, you don't have to then spin up the cost of doing another. Essentially, it automates the runoff process. Yep. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. It seems to me that if you have a really strong number one, that you want your number two choice to be the weakest candidate you can come up with, because you don't want it to get close between you and, like, you want your number one to be a clear number one. So I think your number one you put in the number one slot, and then number two you put the person running for dog catcher. I don't know. I don't.
Interesting.
Now,
okay.
But nobody's promoting that within the campaign or out in the world. The media, everyone's saying you got to put your best choice number one and your second best choice number two. I haven't determined what I'm going to do with that number two slot. I do think that Andrew Yang is the far and away the most interesting candidate for all kinds of reasons. And all the things people are throwing rocks at him about, which is his lack of government experience, I think is absolutely fine. They said the same thing about Barack Obama. I mean, that's like, there's a standard list of criticisms. I think he's been out all over the city. I think he's been working his ass off. I think he has a real vision for how New York can change. I would vote for him in the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines if I could.
If I were in New York City, I would definitely be voting this weekend. But alas, I changed my voting rights to Pennsylvania so I could focus on the presidential election.
Well, I'm not going to early vote, I don't think, because I think I like voting day as a ritual.
Like, you like going to the polls and you like scanning your thing in the machine.
I think I do. Yeah. I mean, I am going to an Andrew Yang rally this afternoon.
I just hope I want to see more numbers show up. This is like one of those races that like less than 20% of New Yorkers participate in, something like that.
Yeah. And what people don't understand, for those of you listening at home, is the primary is, to all intents and purposes, is the election. Because there is not a Republican candidate of any consequence. And New York is a Democratic city. Bloomberg and notwithstanding. State.
Yeah.
And state. So, like, no, I don't think Curtis Sliwa is going to be the mayor of New York City. Yeah. Even though he's an animal rights activist. Yeah. And a vigilante who's pro-police. Can't quite figure it out. All right. Well, we are out of time. Vote. Make sure you vote. Voting is important. If you're listening from somewhere else but New York, there's going to be a huge get out the vote, team working on the Yang campaign, dialing, helping people get to the polls, all that stuff. It's going to be a very intense next 10, 12 days.
Go vote. Support your local bookstores. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.